Former President Reagan is off to London today to receive some honors and make some speeches and see his old friend Margaret Thatcher. Then he's going to Paris to be honored further with induction into an exclusive French academy. We've been wondering what's on Mr. Reagan's mind these days. Last week, I dropped by his office in Los Angeles and asked him. Well, here we are in your office, Mr. President. I'm surprised you have an office at all. After all those years in public life, I should think you'd be up there at the ranch with your feet up and a good book and some good friends around all the time.
Well, let me tell you, we both had the same idea. It didn't work out that way.
Even though you're not president any longer, you must still be president in the mind a little bit. As you see public events unfold, you must be deciding in your head what your policy would be, what should be done. Do you find yourself doing that?
Well, you can't help but have an idea or a belief in the course that we should follow, but you'd have that if you were just a citizen, as I am now, just a citizen.
Let me ask Citizen Reagan his reaction to some recent events. I was in China a couple of weeks ago, and I thought I was too world-weary ever to be moved by any public event, but that got to everybody who was there, that great outpouring of idealism and joy and yearning for democracy. Did you feel that over here?
Oh, yes, very much so. And not surprised, because when Nancy and I made our trip to China and met with all the government officials and all, even then, there were quietly things going on. For example, there was great unemployment, a number of unemployed people. And the government said to them, look, if you want to start a shop or a lunch counter or something of that kind, go ahead. In other words, be capitalists.
All that was very successful. Deng Xiaoping was praised for it.
Yes.
Aren't you afraid all that encouraging progress is just going to be dashed now by this brutal repression? I mean, guns and tanks and tear gas against the people.
I know, but remember, the tone of the military was revealed earlier when they said, no, we're to protect the people, not to fight
Some
them.
military commanders did say that.
So I think we may be faced with a civil war between factions of the military. But I have to be optimistic to this extent. First of all, what we're seeing now is what a lot of us have known for many years, that communism couldn't really be a successful system. This is what is motivating Gorbachev. He came in and found he'd inherited an economic basket case. So he knows that his opposition is going to be from behind him, not the people out in front of him. It's going to be that Politburo. Well, the same thing in China. But those people that are being hard-nosed right now, don't they have to think twice about whether they want to take on the people in the street? When the figures get into the millions, and you know that all of those young people out there, they've got parents and family at home who must feel the same way they do. And I just wonder how long can they pretend that these people are somehow revolutionaries or something. They are technically, but what they're asking for is what man from the very beginning has been asking for, and that is freedom.
Do you feel optimistic enough to say that you feel in your bones they're going to win someday, those people?
Yes, I do, because this is sweeping the communist world. Just look, Poland the other day, the first election in more than 40 years, and they voted against communism.
You're on your way to Europe, where things are changing rapidly. Many of the people of Europe seem to think that Gorbachev's Soviet Union does not represent the threat to them it once did.
We have to realize that in our own country, and as well in those other countries, there are people who never have thought that the Soviet Union was a threat. They sort of leaned that way. But I think the bulk of the people in the world are recognizing, those young people in China are recognizing, that communism now, after its 70-year trial, communism throughout the world just can't cut it and can't provide for the people. When you have a country as great as the Soviet Union in space and land, and they can't raise enough food to feed their people, they have to import it, there's something pretty wrong with the system.
I think if Mikhail Gorbachev were sitting here, he'd agree with you.
Yes, I think so too. The thing about Mikhail, and I know, he's got to be careful because, as say, of that Politburo. But the other thing that I think about us and him is that we don't just be guided by words, guided by deeds.
You had some little ethical blips in your administration. Now the democratically controlled Congress is having its turn. Does the trouble of Speaker Wright and Tony Coelho give you any satisfaction?
Well, to the extent that it calls attention to some things that need correcting in Washington, and that is, again, the Congress that was imposing all kinds of restrictions on people in the executive branch or appointees to government and so forth, and they weren't imposing the same rules on themselves. And I think that all of this should be carefully looked at.
Let me ask you a couple of other things people haven't had a chance to ask you lately. The verdict in the Oliver North case, were you surprised? Were you disappointed? What was your reaction?
No, I was not disappointed in the fact that 9 of the charges were dropped. I'm handicapped in making any comment on this because in him appealing this verdict so far, well, then it's before the courts, and I don't want to say anything that is out of line. Besides which, I have a handicap with regard to this whole thing. It has been falsely portrayed in most of the press, the whole Iran-Contra situation. It has been portrayed as if we were trading arms for hostages with the government of Iran, as it was then.
You've always said that isn't true.
No.
You were quick to say Ollie North's a national hero. Do you still feel that way?
Well, his record reveals that. And this was before all of this came along, but when I felt once then finding out that something I had not been informed of. Now, maybe he informed the next in line, and maybe then it was people higher up in the echelon that decided not. And I have to believe that somebody thought they were doing me a favor by not giving me all the information.
A couple more things. President Bush got off to a slow start, at least slow as perceived by the wicked press. Mm-hmm. Even your own daughter said the other day, these guys have got to start making some decisions. I'm sure she was thinking of the fast start your administration got off to. What do you think? How do you grade these first months of the Bush administration?
I think that something very important has been overlooked. This is the first time in 135 years that a vice president has stepped into the office succeeding the president of his own party.
And a fairly popular one at that.
Well, now, I never have believed that the vice president should be sitting on the sidelines, maybe called upon only to go to funerals or something. When I came into office succeeding a president of the other party, and in disagreement with many of the things that they had been doing, I came in with a program that was to rectify and make some changes. And George was a part of all of that. I think what people were waiting, new president, well, now we must see some new headline-making thing. No. George's job was to continue what has already been going on for 8 years. And I think that no one called any attention to that there couldn't and wouldn't be any great drastic changes. He was going to carry on the things that he'd helped bring about.